Hello, I'm Jeffrey Allison. I'm Manager of Statewide Programs and Exhibitions at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. Welcome to VMFA on the Road, an artmobile for the 21st century. In 1953, the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts created the very first mobile art museum in the world. It traveled throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia from 1953 to 1994, bringing a variety of exhibitions of original artwork throughout the state. In 2018, we brought the new VMFA on the Road Artmobile. In its first 18-month tour, we served over 167,000 Virginians with an exhibition entitled How Far Can Creativity Take You? VMFA Fellowship Artists. Today we're going to introduce you to the second exhibition on board the Artmobile, Virginia Landscapes. Let's go in and meet our Artmobile team, Sukenya Best and Sean Kane, as they look at a variety of artworks in the exhibition and explain how this wonderful program works today.
Hello, I'm Sean with VMFA on the Road. Welcome to the Artmobile, the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts fully accessible mobile gallery. Our new exhibit, A View from Home, Landscapes of Virginia, features 11 works in a variety of media, all depicting scenes from around the Commonwealth. We'd like to give you a taste of what you'll find on board today. While the COVID-19 crisis lasts, we are requiring masks and limiting the number of people who can be on board. Today we'll be practicing social distancing, but when you visit in person, we'll have our masks on. So come on in and view A View from Home, Landscapes of Virginia. The first work we'd like to focus on today is by George Johnson. Tailor, tenor, postman, George Johnson held many jobs throughout his life, but he was always an artist. Born in 1888, he began painting at the age of 5. As a teenager in Richmond, Virginia, he worked as an elevator operator, but took the opportunity to sell handmade postcards to his patrons. Seeing his talent, his employers asked him to illustrate advertisements for the newspaper. His career in art took a detour when he attended Hampton Institute to train as a tailor. After graduating, he worked as a singer in New York City and plied his trade as a tailor in New York, Hot Springs, Philadelphia, and Richmond. Back in Virginia, he entered the Postal Service, took correspondence courses in art, and in 1918 became an editorial cartoonist for the Richmond Planet, the city's leading African-American newspaper. His cartoons, many which featured the evils of segregation, the importance of education, and the trials of African Americans during the era of Jim Crow were reproduced in papers throughout the world. In 1948, he created a series of greeting cards featuring Ethiopians from antiquity to promote pride in African Americans' history. As a painter, he focused mostly on biblical and historical subjects, but he also created still lifes and landscapes. Idol of Virginia Mountains is one of his most expressive. The viewer is put high up in the Blue Ridge Range of the Commonwealth, and with loose strokes of turquoise, violet, gray, and brown, in places peach pigment suggesting the glancing rays of the sun, he has created a scene that is both universal and specific. In 1945, Idols of Virginia Mountains became part of the permanent collection of the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, making it the first work by an African-American painter to be purchased by the museum. George Johnson said he wanted to render pictorially anything that would help him and others see truth, beauty, and to think.
Hello, my name is Sukenya Best, and I am one of the coordinators for the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts Artmobile. Today I will give a portion of the virtual tour on the Artmobile. of 2 of the artists out of the 11 that are exhibited in A View from Home, Landscapes of Virginia. My first artist I will talk about is Miwako Nishizawa. Miwako Nishizawa is a Japanese-American artist who now lives in California. She studied art in both Japan and New York. Nishizawa was invited to Virginia by Japanese art collectors Renee and Carolyn Balser to do a project called 12 Views of Virginia, which became a Virginia Museum of Fine Arts exhibition in 2014. The project started in 2009 and lasted for 5 years. Inspired by Kawase Hasui, woodblock prints in the 1920s, she traveled all around Virginia sketching and taking pictures of landscapes. Nishizawa says, Virginia's natural colors are similar to those in Japanese landscapes, which makes woodblock a fitting medium for a series. Her artwork in the exhibition is titled Cape Henry Lighthouses, and it's an edition of 50. This is number 4. The medium is woodblock print, ink and color on paper, and it was completed in 2014. We see the original large Cape Henry lighthouse from 1792 and the newer 1881 lighthouse constructed 350 feet from the original one. There is a circular sweep of the newer lighthouse lamp. The storm is represented by diagonal lines across the entire print, and we see a pattern of turbulent ocean waves. This scene is located in the northern tip of Virginia Beach. This print follows the traditional Japanese practice of having seals and signatures. There are 4 here. There's the artist signature, artist seal, and 2 sponsors' seals. Ukiyo-e means pictures of the floating world, a traditional style of Japanese woodblock print popular during the 17th through 19th centuries. It captures social life and daily life of common people, famous theater actors, courtesans, city life, and landscapes. It's divided into 2 lines. Shinhanga is the direction Nishizawa follows. For the 12 Views of Virginia, she is the sole creator and printer of the entire series. It took her 2 to 6 months to complete each print. In order to hear more and see Nishizawa talk about her print process, more landscapes, and the Japanese tradition of printmaking, go to VMFA's YouTube channel to see her interview.
The next work we'd like to feature is by George Harvey. Scenes of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad and the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. Thomas Jefferson visited Harper's Ferry in 1783 and said the scene was worth the voyage across the Atlantic. English-born artist George Harvey made the voyage in 1820 when he was 20 years old. According to his journal, he spent the next 2 years in the far west, in the remote wilds of the New World, hunting and trapping, writing poetry and prose, and drafting and sketching. By 1827, Harvey settled in Brooklyn, New York, working primarily on portrait miniatures. In 1834, he moved from the city, purchased land in the Hudson River Valley, and designed and built a cottage. He also redesigned the home of his friend and neighbor, Washington Irving, author of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. He would later write that while engaged in this architectural work, Harvey began to notice and study the ever-varying atmospheric effects of this beautiful climate. I undertook to illustrate them with my pencil and commenced a set of atmospherical landscapes. Over the next several years, Harvey depicted North American landscapes from Virginia to Canada, focusing on the effects caused by atmospheric conditions at different times of the day and year. This image, done around 1837, shows Harper's Ferry's massive rock bluffs that loom above the meeting of the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers. Harvey's inclusion of the passenger train adds significance to the canvas. This is one of the earliest American landscapes to picture a railroad. Used to the fine detail that portrait miniatures required, Harvey's rendering allows us to identify the locomotive leading the train as the Arabian, a vertical boiler, grasshopper engine built for the B&O Railroad. Known for his watercolors, this work is also distinctive because it's one of the few surviving examples of his work in oil.
Brian Palmer is a Richmond-based photojournalist who studied photography and worked in New York. He is known for prominent publications. He received a Peabody Award in 2019 for his work on the radio story, Monumental Lies. Brian believes in telling stories with pictures that may not otherwise be told. His artwork in the exhibition is an untitled digital photograph of the Evergreen Cemetery. It was completed in 2017. What we see in this landscape is a section of the 60-acre cemetery that shows it overgrown with kudzu, which is a vine weed that smothers other plants, trees, and stops it from receiving sunlight. This photograph is an example of the challenges Brian Palmer and volunteers face to restore and reveal the burial markers and graves within the entire cemetery. Evergreen Cemetery is a historic African-American burial ground that reveals African-American history and community of many who were born enslaved. Founded in 1891 because white cemeteries in Virginia were closed to African-Americans and didn't desegregate until the 1960s. Evergreen fell into disrepair by the 1970s. In 2017, Enrichment Foundation purchased the property and began facilitating the restoration. All 60 acres is in the city of Richmond. It is the resting place of Maggie Walker, first African-American female bank president, and John Mitchell Jr., editor of the Richmond Planet newspaper, one of America's first African-American newspapers. Sean talked about George Johnson, whose artwork is also exhibited in the Artmobile. George Johnson worked for John Mitchell Jr. He created souvenir and editorial cartoons for the newspaper. To learn more about Brian Palmer's endeavors to restore East End Cemetery, another African-American burial ground next to Evergreen Cemetery, go to eastendcemeteryrva.com. To volunteer for his organization, Friends of East End, go to friendsofeastend.com. If you want to hear an interview of Brian Palmer talking about the history and the projects of the cemetery and learn more about his photography strategies and styles, go to VMFA YouTube channel.
We hope you enjoyed this virtual tour of VMFA on the Road, an Artmobile for the 21st century, and our newest exhibition, A View from Home, Landscapes of Virginia. We want to take this opportunity to remind you to visit our website. We're always adding new content in support of this exhibition, new videos, new make and takes, a lot of material that you can use during this time. We also look forward to bringing the truck to a community near you when possible. Please take that opportunity to come and visit us in person and see the artwork up close and real. And remember, please stay safe and wear your mask.